So this is a quick fire way for you to work out your own calorie intake and a loose way to do so. As with any calculation with calorie intake, it is trial and error. So wherever you start at, it is just a starting point, and there will be room for upwards and downwards movement, just depending on what the data is telling you. So first of all, what you need is your weight. I'll always go kilograms, so body weight in kilos first. And then depending on whether you're male or female, so males will multiply that by 24 and females will multiply it by 22. So it'll either be times 24 for males or 22 for females. And then after this, once you get this number, then you'll multiply that number by your activity level. And obviously this is going to vary between individuals. It's going to vary depending on your training status. It's going to vary depending on your job and just how generally active you are throughout the day. Like if you have a sedentary job, you don't do very much around the house, you barely get 2,000 steps a day, you train maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and overall your activity levels are quite low, you're going to be in the lower end of the scale. If you're someone who is on their feet all day, you have a physically demanding job, maybe you're a man in a manual labour job, and you also train 5 days a week, you're going to be in the higher end of the scale, okay? So you can multiply it anywhere from like 1.2 to 1.6. Typically, most people will be in and around like the 1.3 to 1.4 mark. But if you are exceptionally active, like a man in a manual labour job, or even a coach who trains as well, who are on their feet and they're using energy at all times or most of the times throughout the day, this one will be for the higher end. So 1.3 to 1.4 typically, right up to 1.5 to 1.6. And then once you get that next number, that is what is your, I've just taken a mind blank. That is what is your maintenance level of calories. And again, that can be absolutely taken up, taken down, depending on what the data is telling you. So if you start off with that first, it's a good starting point, and then you can go, right, now I need to go down into whether you need to go into a deficit or you want to go into a deficit, or you maybe want to eat a wee bit more. Maybe you're trying to gain lean mass, maybe you're trying to put on weight, maybe you're just trying to get more food in because you're training more, you're training for a particular event or whatever it is. So starting off with this number, let's say for argument's sake, it is 2,000 calories. Which is maintenance. And this is how much your body needs just to keep you alive, to fuel bodily processes, just like your heart beating, your blood pumping around your body, your brain working, things like that. Then it takes into account if you go to the shop throughout the day, if you do the housework throughout the day, if you're making the dinner, whatever you're doing. And then you've got your activity levels on top of that, which is like your gym and that there. So if you wanted to go down into a deficit, anywhere from like a 10 to 20% deficit is suffice. If you're in it for the long run and you're happy to take things in a controlled manner, should I say, not a slow manner, but a controlled manner, then a 10 to 20% deficit is suffice. With most clients, I will start them at a 10% deficit. It keeps compliance, and it means that they're not completely through into the deep end. They're hungry, they're irritable, they think they can't do it, and then they give up after 2 weeks. So if you start with a 10% deficit, and then you bring it down gradually, again, depending on what the data is telling you, if you're losing weight and things are consistently moving the way they should be, is there any need for you to touch your calories? No. And I get clients after the first week, they'll have lost weight after the first week, and then they want to decrease their calories. And this happens constantly. And what's a good thing to keep in mind whenever you are in a deficit is think of like having like a calorie ceiling. So if you're in a deficit and your deficit is 1,700 calories, okay? What is the point of bringing it down to 1,500? Whenever you can still maintain a deficit at 1,700, you'll be in a better mood, you'll have more energy, you'll be able to train harder, you'll be able to eat. Why would you bring the calories even lower just because you think lower is going to be better? Because it's not, and you're going to end up backfiring it some other way later down the line. So think of your calorie ceiling. Start off with a 10% deficit, and if you need to, you can do gradual decreases. If things are moving well, and perhaps you are just needing a wee slight bit of deficit, you're moving more as well. So remember that your deficit can be created by you moving more and eating a wee bit less. It doesn't have to be a complete extreme eating less plus moving more and then just keep eating less, because it doesn't work like that. And it is just going to end up either in burnout or like a rebound where you're like, I can't do this. So 10% deficit, move a wee bit more, see how things are, give it time, so 2 to 3 weeks you're talking, and then you can manipulate calories and move calories around from there. Okay, and then again, same way, if you're trying to gain weight and you're trying to get yourself into a surplus, a gradual way to do that is a better way to do it. Like a lot of the people will listen and they'll be like, oh, it would be a dream to have to eat as much as you want. But it's not. And for someone who's trying to gain weight, it is a chore. And for someone who's trying to gain weight, it's as hard as weight loss. So starting off again, so you'll multiply it by like 1.1, 1.15, then 1.2. And you'll take like a 10 to 20% surplus and gradually increase your calories from there. And that'll be a whole other seminar on how to do that and how to do it without it being like, oh, I'm so full up all the time, I really, really hate this. There are ways and means around it so that it is an easier process for you. So hopefully that kind of tidies things up for your calories. On your macronutrients, a lot of the time it's like, just don't stress it. And for the most part, I will get clients to start off with just looking at protein, because macronutrients and tracking macronutrients is hard, and it's very hard to get things bang on. And if you're just trying to get someone to be compliant with eating within their calories and getting more protein in, they don't need a spanner in the works by trying to hit X amount of carbs and X amount of fats. So I'll start off with calorie intake first, and then your protein intake. And for most people, they're going to be in and around like 1.6 to 1.8 grams per kilo of body weight, okay, for your protein intake. Again, this is going to move up and down depending on your gender, your activity levels, as in like your training status, your age. Different things will affect your protein requirements, but that is like a basic starting point. And a lot of the time people are like, oh, you need 2.5 grams per kilo of body weight, and you don't. And your calories can be better used elsewhere. It's not to say it's going to be harmful or things like that, but your calories can be better used elsewhere, and it will just make eating and your diet a wee bit more enjoyable, plus more varied, to get the good carbs in. So protein intake anywhere from that, and then your fat intake first, even if you went about 25 to 30% of your total calorie intake, and then carbohydrates can make up the rest. Again, activity levels and your training status depends on how much carbohydrates you will need. For someone who is a long distance marathon runner, they're obviously going to need so many more carbohydrates than someone who is an office worker and does CrossFit 2 or 3 times a week. So again, it's all individual. But hopefully that kind of clears it up, and it makes the concept of tracking calories and tracking your macros just feel that wee bit less daunting.